Mogoče bi se navezala na prvo predstavitev dr. Šijane Zavrlove in dr. Jordanove na temo kriterijev in smernic za trajnostne kriterije v Sloveniji. Lahko vprašam, kaj v nadaljevanju lahko pričakujemo od posameznih deležnikov pri razvoju slovenskega sistema trajnostnih kriterijev?
V prvi vrsti jaz mislim, da zelo pomembna je podpora države, ministrstva, kar jaz mislim, da lahko rečem, da jo imamo, pri razvoju te naše naloge ali pa v nadaljevanju te naloge, kakorkoli. Potem zelo pomembno vlogo oziroma mi vidimo izredno pomembno vlogo industrije v tem segmentu. Industrija se mora zavedati, da mora pripraviti svoje, razviti svoje produkte v tem smislu, pripraviti dokumentacijo, se zavedati, da s konkurenčnostjo, s tem, ko pripravlja, izdeluje trajnostne proizvode, da je s tem dejansko postaja konkurenčna in da to je tisto, kar rabimo od industrije, da se zapolni ta vrzel podatkov. Po drugi strani rabimo seveda tudi izobraževalni sistem izobraževanja, ne samo na nivoju šolstva, ampak tudi prej smo slišali, problem imamo z izvajalci. Treba jih izobraziti o teh osnovnih rečemo temu, pojmih, trajnostnih pojmih, ki se nanašajo tudi na samo izvedbo gradnje. Tukaj je tudi pač ta močna podpora pri izobraževanju. In pa seveda stroka je tista, ki pričakujemo od nje, da nas bo podprla, da bo sodelovala pri, recimo temu, pri razvoju sistemov za trajnostno vrednotenje v smislu feedbacka. Prej sem slišal zelo lepo predavanje od gospe Močnik, ugotovitve, kaj ta trenutek manjka v sistemu in se tega pravzaprav zavedamo. In seveda ena od prvih stvari je, da se izpolnijo te vrzeli v sistemu kazalnikov za to, da postane vse skupaj dejansko celovita enota in da se lahko porabi za vrednotenje trajnostnih stavb. Jaz sem sigurno še kaj pozabila, mogoče bi Marjana kaj dodala tukaj.
Prosim, ja.
No, dejstvo je, da se ne da razviti in vzpostaviti sistema za vrednotenje trajnostne gradnje brez proaktivne udeležbe vseh akterjev na slovenskem trgu. Jaz sem pravzaprav vesela, ko vidim take dogodke, kot je današnji, pa ni prvi letos, da se mi zdi, da je ta kritična masa interesa seveda narašča. Po drugi strani tudi trg očitno potrebuje neko transparentnost na področju trajnostne gradnje, tako da verjamem, da bomo z skupnimi močmi to kolo premaknili naprej, ampak kot poudarjam, za skupnimi močmi. Zgledujemo se lahko po tujih trgih, vidimo, kateri so tisti elementi, kateri so tisti deležniki, kakšen je njihov angažma, ključen angažma, ki je pravzaprav zagotovil, da so razvitejši trgi uspeli narediti ta korak naprej. Poznamo to,
Lahko samo še dodam nekaj, kar sem prej pozabila. Zaupanje. Jaz mislim, da je to zelo potrebno. Vsi deležniki pravzaprav morajo zaupati v to, da tisti, ki razvija tako zadevo, prvič ni enostavna, je zelo kompleksna in rabi ogromno časa, rabi ogromno angažmaja, energije in pač kakorkoli kapacitet, da se take stvari izvedejo. Videli smo, da na evropskem nivoju zadeva ne poteka z danes na jutr, ampak traja zelo, zelo dolgo in še niti ni gotova. Torej, zaupanje, da se stvari gradijo in v končno rešitev, ki jo bomo, upam, skupaj speljali.
Morda bi bilo zanimivo slišati, se pravi, predstavniki industrije, vi ste predstavljali izdelke z trajnostnega vidika, trajnostno proizvodnjo, odgovornost do prostora. To ni zraslo od včerajšnja, danes to traja nekaj časa. Se pravi, ko se je zgodba o trajnostnosti nekako začenjala, ste vi nemudoma stopili v korak s svojimi proizvodi, z načinom proizvodnje, z okoljsko odgovornostjo in bili kot tisti lideri, ki so povzročali spremembe. Ali bi takrat še drug navdih in je mogoče država spodbudila ta razvoj. Kako se je to začelo, ker mogoče vzvodnosti?
Odgovor je sledeč. Definitivno je tu pomagala dosti država, zaradi tega, ker so bile določene subvencije, kar se tiče fotovoltaike in pa čistilne naprave. Je pa po drugi strani spet res, da so naše vrednote, naša kultura takšna, da definitivno podpiramo skrb do okolja. Po drugi strani pa spet moramo slediti ekonomske učinkovitosti. To pa je ta druga stvar in seveda si želimo državne podpore in posluha države še nadalje. Samo tako obstali kot trajnostno podjetje na slovenskem trgu ali pa v evropskem. In še ena stvar, jaz se bi zahvalil tudi Veluksovi predstavitvi, zaradi tega, ker na koncu ste bili na svetlobi, ampak ste govorili tudi o kvaliteti notranjega zraka, kjer JUP zelo veliko prispeva za svojimi proizvodi, saj smo naš brand JUPol in ostali proizvodi na notranjem segmentu, moram reči, da je ena najbolj znanih znamk tukaj v Sloveniji in tudi najbolj ekoloških.
Mr. Koch, maybe I'll translate the discussion. We are talking about the influence of the state and policy to the transformation of industry to be more green, more sustainable. And can you share the experience from Austria with us? So being sustainable today meant that you had to start it many years before.
I think we have to look at two different levels. There is one, the EU legislation level, which of course clearly goes in the direction of sustainability, both on production level of our products and the products as such as well. So there I see a clear trend towards more sustainable products and more sustainable production processes. And then, of course, we also have the national level, which is not always 100% in line with these European trends. If I can talk here about the example of Austria, there is a lot of systems that try to enforce more sustainability in construction. We are in the lucky situation still that if you build a house in Austria, you get public money, you get subsidies, and these subsidies are, at least to a certain extent, based on sustainability criteria, mostly on energy efficiency, but more and more also on additional aspects like specific materials which are not allowed to be used, etc. So also this public funding of housing has, of course, an influence and supports a trend towards more sustainability.
Yeah, thank you. It's a bit frustrating because I never think I've heard people talking so much about levels and I haven't understood a word. So I'm sure I would have loads of questions if I had understood, but perhaps that's something that we can come back a bit later on. And I also have, of course, I'm very curious about the Knauf experience there. But I also know that I will have that in a language that I understand from your colleagues in Brussels. So, but at least I want to say thank you for doing that work because it's great.
Thank you, and thank you for your support.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure for us and a great honor
that's nice.
to contribute to this program.
That's great. So the only thing that I have understood was Mr. Koch, of course. So I paid exceptional attention there. I'm certainly going to look into this study that you mentioned. I hope that it exists in English as well, the results. An executive summary or something?
Yeah, maybe an
perhaps?
executive summary.
But I would like to ask you, because you said that the obvious result was that as long as you sort out the energy efficiency, you've done most of what you need to do. And I was wondering how you were looking at that, because I gave an example before that if you insulate your building in a way which doesn't allow for reuse and recyclability afterwards, when you come to the end of life of the building, then you can end up or that results in really big negative environmental impacts. Another example is that very energy efficient buildings these days, well, depending on how they are built, obviously, many of them have to be used for 20, 30, even 40 years before the energy that you put into constructing the building pays off. So it's not just have an energy efficient building and that's that. You need to think very carefully about how you do that in order to not have negative effects somewhere else. So I was just wondering what were the different aspects that were looked at there, and were there any kind of nuances in those results?
Yeah, of course, you are perfectly right, and it is clear that the better the energy efficiency of the building, the higher the relative impact of the other life cycle phases, like the production phase, the grey energy in the materials.
The relative,
used.
yes, but the absolute
And
as
at
well,
the end,
yes.
it becomes relatively more important. If you look on a low energy house, for example, the absolute contribution of the materials as such over the whole life cycle is still relatively low. If you look at a passive house or even a plus energy house, of course, then for a plus energy house, in principle, the contribution of the materials is the only thing that remains. Yeah. But what was done in these studies, which I showed you, is they simply followed were calculated according existing LCA standards, and the impact were summed up over a whole life cycle of 100 years. So these are the results, and I did not say, if that came over, then I apologize, then that was not the message I wanted to deliver. I didn't say you can ignore the materials if you just optimize energy efficiency. What I said is the differences in different materials used is comparatively low to the impact of energy efficiency. So if governments, if policymakers want to put in focus by subsidizing, then they should rather subsidize on optimal energy efficiency, but not on subsidizing specific materials. And you need to know my background. Yeah, in Austria, this is exactly the case. You get more money if you build with timber. And that's, from my perspective, sorry to say that clearly, is ridiculous. There is no justification for that. This is based on wrong presumptions. Yeah, this what I showed in my first chart. People believe that if they just use more timber, they save the climate. And these studies clearly show, sorry, that's not true. That's not the right way. We should optimize energy efficiency, then we should of course look at reasonable combinations of building materials, but whether then the decision is for a lightweight timber frame construction, for air-rigid concrete, for brick or whatever, this is not the big issue. There, all materials, all combinations of materials from their impact are on the same level, on comparable level.
It's a lot of levels. I agree. I mean, it's not that I agree. It's obvious. Those are scientific results. And I just want to stress that In the work with levels, we have taken a totally material neutral approach. We are not favoring any material over another in the way we, score or whatever. On the contrary, we think it's very important to look at true impacts and not perceptions of what we think might be better. Because that might also be very different in different parts of Europe. You may have reasons for doing it in different ways. But so that is certainly not, that goes very well in hand with how we have developed levels. Another question perhaps in relation to that, I remember you said that the lifetime that you've set was 100 years. That sounds very high to me. I think in most other countries that I'm aware of, whether you do LCAs, they use either 50, 60, perhaps 70 years. Is 100 years standard in Austria?
Yes. At least for the ecological assessment, it's shorter for the economic assessment.
Oh, sure.
We looked at the second chart there, we took 50, or not we, the people who did these studies, they took 50 years as the calculation, the depreciation period. But for the ecological assessment, for the overall life span of the building, 100 years is usual.
Now the embodied impacts, of course, get lower if you use such a long life.
Yeah. What is taken into account is that over 100 years it will be necessary here and there to renovate, to exchange parts of the building, to renew parts of the building, but this effect is taken into account.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for really nice discussion.